meetings. So we do have a quorum, so the meeting is called to order. One of the things that I would like to point out that because we had to reschedule this meeting, technically it is a special meeting. So we are only allowed to discuss what's on the agenda. And we are not in a position to add any action items to the agenda for discussion today because it's technically a special meeting. So I just wanted to point that out before we got going. Okay, the first topic on the agenda is approval of the minutes for the special joint meeting that was held on March the 4th.
I'll move that we approve those meetings.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? Sorry, can you repeat that?
I will move to approve those minutes.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. So I just go a little bit slower. So it moved and Wheeler has seconded. All in favor? Say aye.
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 Amy, I have okay.
Is anyone else getting an echo?
Yeah.
Amy, you may want to turn the volume on your speaker down a little bit because we're getting feedback from you.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so far I have Jan Reedman abstained. But everybody else has approved, correct? No no's? Okay. Amy Chickles, have you gotten that? Got it. Okay. All right. So next order of business is to discuss and take action on resolution 20-9. If there's not an objection, I will not read the entire resolution, if that's okay. I'd like to open it up for discussion. We have at the joint meeting on the 4th, we did approve all of the temporary easements and permanent easements that were required for the construction. This resolution is for the discussion and action on the actual grant that's going to be received from the state. We've been, Jeremy's here to answer any other questions that have come up, but in general, I think we're all well aware that this is for the intersection of West Avenue and Norotan to create 2 turning lanes to ease the congestion. We have been in the works discussing this for, I think, for over 2.5 years. And the RTM is voting on this on Monday, so we do not delay the scheduling any by when the Department of Transportation actually does approve this grant. From my understanding, it has not been approved yet, but we were originally scheduled to start work there after the school year was over from June, and an anticipated end date of wrapping up construction in October. I don't know if that has been delayed at all based on COVID-19 and the delays that are in our lives right now, but the RTM is scheduled to vote on this on Monday. We are a second to report out. I'll open it up for discussion if there's any questions that anybody has.
I have a question. In terms of the grant, obviously I'm in favor of accepting, and I probably should know this, but being new, maybe that gives me an excuse not to know. What town funding is required for this? Maybe it's a question for Jeremy.
Jan,
I can't hear you.
Jan, this is Jeremy Ginsburg. I can repeat your question, which is what town funding is required for this project?
Right. That's the question.
And so basically the nature of the grant is that through SCOG is that the town pays certain costs and then the state of Connecticut will pay the construction costs. So there are certain costs, and the state of Connecticut will also pay right-of-way easement acquisition costs, which the total, we foresee the state of Connecticut being well over $1 million. The town's portion, which are soft costs, surveying, we hired a appraiser, and the engineer, we pay that, but state of Connecticut through the grant will pay the major part of the cost. We are still awaiting signatures for 3 of the property owners. We do have the paperwork in their hands, but I spoke to Ed Gentile the other day, and I think we're going to give them another week or 2 before we follow up. One issue that's come a little bit in the way is the documents need to be notarized, and so we are certainly responsive to people's concern about running out to a notary. We're going to follow up with them soon to try to keep this on track as much as we can. But really, the proposal before the RTM relates to, once the documents are signed, we're going to be sending everything up to the state DOT for their final review, and then they'll send funds. This will allow us to draw down on the funds, and we won't be having to wait for the RTM at that next step. This will kind of anticipate that next step, which would be the RTM authorizing us to take the grant and draw down the funds.
Okay.
Kate, I think I hit everything, correct, Kate?
Yes, yes, you did.
The motivator of my question really is a larger question that obviously is not on the agenda for this, but, you know, going forward, we as a town are going to have to think about the money we spend, given the fact that we're probably going to have less income to the town as a
This
result.
has no impact on that.
What?
There will be no impact. The town is, from this project.
Okay.
We spent all we needed to spend.
Right. Okay. Thanks, Kate. I think you get my, going forward, we're going to have to be a little more probably judicious in how we approve projects. Just because of the effect on the economy.
Okay.
I'll mute myself.
Any other, anybody else would like to have discussion, clarifying questions for Jeremy or Kate? I know we've been, as a community, talking about this and been aware about this for 2.5 years, so I imagine that most people are well versed. Is there a motion to vote for this resolution?
I'll move.
Okay, you're moving to a vote to approve the resolution, Amy? I'm sorry, was there a second? Yeah.
Mike Wheeler will
Yeah,
second.
seconding, okay. All in favor of approving resolution 20-9? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody voting no for 20-9? I'm sorry, who was that? Somebody, if somebody is, I'm sorry for the confusion here, but because I can't see everybody on the screen, I'm voting no for this resolution. Okay, all right, I think we have, that's been approved. It was unanimous, all present were in favor, okay? The next action on the agenda, the next item on the agenda is I had put this on the agenda in anticipation of if people wanted to discuss this, because there was so much information and bantering back and forth about the governor's executive order on how municipalities were going to oversee and vote on municipal budgets for 2020 to 2021 budgets. and there was some interpretations and clarifications that were needed from the governor's executive order. And there was at one point a recommendation from the Rules Committee that the RTM cede their authority for approval of the budget to our budget making authority in the town, which at one point was to be assumed exclusively as the Board of Finance. I put it on the.
One correction I would say on the Rules Committee, we voted to put it on the agenda. We did not have a point of view on it. The information we got at that time was that it was going to be a requirement, but the Rules Committee just simply put it on the agenda.
Put it on the agenda. Okay, so since that time, there's been a lot of investigations by the town council, by F&B, and by, requests for clarification from the governor's office. I had put it on the agenda because I thought it might be a topic that people wanted to discuss. And as I mentioned earlier, as a special meeting, I can't add it in if we got started and somebody wanted to discuss this. So I put it on the agenda. I will give you an update. F&B has their most recent meeting on Vimeo. You can certainly watch that. It's quite a long one, but there's a lot of interpretations, and net since that meeting, there's been some clarifications from the governor's office stating that an RTM does have joint budget making authority with a Board of Finance, and therefore I think the guidance that everybody has come down on is that the RTM should not cede their budget making authority, and we should continue going forward because we have the means to do that virtually. So I wanted to open it up to the committee to see if anybody wanted to discuss that, if you had any clarifications, because we as a body are going to be asked to vote on this on Monday, and
Amy?
it's quite a complicated discussion of back and forth following a bouncing ball. So I just wanted to get an opportunity for anybody that have questions about it before they were asked to vote on it on Monday.
Amy, if I could give you an update.
That'd be great, Kate. Yeah.
Yeah. It is likely going to be pulled from the agenda. The
Okay.
governor's office came out with a new FAQ where they've stated that it was not their intent to advise that the RTM had to cede control of the budget authority.
Okay.
It was just bad language on the state's part. So I believe you should all have an email from Seth saying that basically it's likely coming off the agenda. It's no longer, it's a moot point.
Okay.
The guidance we've got from the state is no longer an issue.
I did get that. I did get that, and I'm sure if you have a chance to look at your email, it just came, so if you haven't seen it, that's why. But I just thought it was also worth mentioning that the F&B committee last night voted 16-0 to have the RTM maintain the belief that the RTM had the final say.
Okay. Well, then I guess we don't need to discuss this. All right.
I think that's pretty clear.
We just shortened the RTM meeting by a lot, I think.
Okay.
I was
All
looking
right.
forward to an act of civil disobedience of voting against the governor's order.
All right, then. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn.
You have to do,
All right. Who was that?
you have to do that.
All right.
Don't you have the buddy system? Don't you have the buddy system?
Mike, I thought that buddy system was not having RTM discussion.
I guess Kate is the
Hold on, can we time out? Can we just let Mike talk?
My understanding is Jack was looking for that, whatever the decision had been on the governor, that it was part, he thinks it is an effective part of the due diligence process, even if there was, we were going to see the vote. So
I
I
would
thought he wanted it as a part of a new policy, but I may be wrong.
No, I think Mike is right that Jack is looking for members of the various committees who will be reviewing sections of the budget to assign a couple members of the committee to work with the Board of Finance as they review the budget, so that it saves a lot of, it saves some time, and mainly for some of the department heads, but it also gives you the opportunity to be involved with the Board of Finance as they review it, learn more about the budget, so you're prepared for the eventual budget vote.
Okay, I misinterpreted that. I thought it was during, if we were operating under the full RTM, no longer involved. Okay. Given that, any volunteers to, anybody want to volunteer? I see Jan's hand. Anybody else? Amy? Okay. Okay. I am assuming that as a committee chairperson, I will obviously stay involved, but it looks like we have 2 volunteers of Amy and Jan to be involved in the buddy system and following the budgets for with F&B as they report out through the duration of the remaining budget season. We have already invited Jeremy in to discuss planning, zoning budgets already. So we've, as a committee, I think, had a jump start on that. But if there's anybody else that wants to be involved, certainly the more the merrier. Okay.
Can I ask a question? With this committee that I just signed up to be on.
Was that not your intent?
No, I just wanted to understand one thing. Is it Amy's and my job to follow the part of the budget that has to do with our committee, PZNH? Not
Yes.
to follow the budget process on the Board of Ed and all of that, just when we get to PZ.
Yeah.
And any other part of the budget that might affect a vote that we might have to take later. Mike saying no.
No, right, anything that affects our committee, just that.
Right,
You don't
okay.
you don't have to go to all the Board of Education, all the budget meetings. It's just,
Yeah, having been on the Board of Education, I've already done that.
All right. All right. Okay, then I will follow up with Amy and Jan separately with relevant dates and milestones that we need to be aware of. Okay.
Perfect.
All right. Now I'll ask for the motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn?
Okay, Mike. All in favor? All right. Thanks, guys.